I'm gonna fix my camera real quick. This is just gonna be a quick summary over some warrior stuff that I've picked up as I'm making builds, and probably not the meta builds that you're used to, but just like some tips, basically, and combinations that I've found. And then we're gonna show this new upgraded version, which we have a little bit less damage overall, but more survivability in total, and we have upgraded to the Berserker. Any case, the basics that I can tell you for like weapons and things like that for the warrior: sword, shield, longbow, sword, shield, hammer, sword, shield, axe, or a sword with any of those kind of combinations together work really well. Great sword, rifle work really well together. Hammer, axe works really well together. Hammer, mace works good together. Mace, sword, or mace, axe work pretty good together. Um, if you do something like sword, mace, aristocrat ruins or something like that can be used for might generation healing, or even mace, hammer, because you can go weaken blows and you can get might healing off of that. If you're going for a more of a Condi build or something like the swords, like sword shield, the burst skills are more blunt. You don't have as much evasion. You have very standard blocks. You don't have the evasion, um, and your skills kind of root you in place. So if you do a build like that, you either need more defensive armor to kind of let your conditions do more damage over time if you want more condition damage, or you go for damage immunity, which the defense tree does really well because you can get weakness AoE on targets, you get the regen, your lesser endure pain, and the last stand, or you get Condi cleanse or whatever. So the defense trait line is really good starting out just general and warriors. Um, and anytime I make a build, I would tend to focus on more overall defense and then slowly take away additional healing and things that you might not need as you get better and kind of adapt to the game as you go. Because, like this one, for instance, the way the build's set up, I can still drop all of my tactics trait lines and healing for extra damage if I want. And I can still get some healing off of my Shake It Off for the most part. So it's not that big of a deal. So if you want the extra damage, it's good to start off with kind of a defensive set and then slowly whittle it down to the least amount of defense that you need. But when it comes to condition type builds or hybrid type builds, since conditions take a little bit longer to apply damage over time, I like to go for damage immunity over mostly everything else because you got to have the ability to apply the conditions consistently and also be able to keep yourself alive and allow the conditions to do their job. The good part of the conditions is that you can use conditions in multiple areas at the same time, and that's where it really pays off when you do the condition warrior. So you're going to be able to proc conditions on 2 or 3 groups of enemies depending on how you set your build up, and then that's going to give you more total damage in a various different areas. Whereas like a power warrior is very direct, and you have to be physically present to deal the damage in all of those locations. So there's a little bit of nuance between the two. But when you do something like a Great Sword Rifle Warrior, which is probably the best setup I've found for a rifle, I would focus more on dodging compared to damage immunity because the Great Sword has um, more evasions. It has more yeah, movement than a lot of the other weapons, and then the rifle has evasions and things as well. And then both of those are power weapons, which can benefit a lot from might generation, and also they have might healing generally in their kit. They're better at might healing than, say, the condition weapons are in general. So you can generate a lot more by dodge rolling in those circumstances. And you can still implement that on condition weapons like the sword, shield, longbow, but you need to like fire auroras. You need to draw aggro. Um, you can do ruins that give you extra might. You can do that weaken blows, which will give you something like 5 might every 10 seconds extra. So I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. But you can make might generation work on the condition builds. It's just not as good. As for weaken blows or whatever, so if you did sword for like might generation, you can get 10 might on the rip. So if you're going for might generation on a Condi build, you can still use the sword rip second ability on the 4 to get 10 stacks, which will help make up for the loss because the great sword doesn't have any form of might generation on its kit, which you do on the sword. But the great sword can apply vulnerability and give you infinite fury uptime. So your weapons, you need to look at what kind of boons that you're getting off of them and what kind of uptimes can you keep. So the great sword, for instance, I can keep fury up 100% even if I don't have Signet of Rage on my character. Whereas my sword shield on the build that I have right now in core, it's going to be about 70% baseline crit damage or crit chance. And then I only have access to about 35 seconds of Fury with Signet of Rage. And then if I have the arms trait, I can get like another 15 seconds, and that will kind of make it 100%. But I can slot this additional trait line in arms if I want and get Opportunist to get an additional 12 seconds, which would definitely make it 100%. But other builds that don't have boon duration increases, you're not going to have access to 100% uptime on your Fury. So you might just have to have a rotation where you can get your Fury in and out. And although most builds are going to go for highest damage value, this is just builds in general. So if you want to try something fun, go ahead and try and do whatever you want and just kind of take some of these concepts with you if you want. Now, on the flip side of this, things like hammer and mace, their kind of defense value comes from their crowd control. So when you use those, you have more CC. You want to be able to kind of manage and hold people in place. And the interesting concept, if you go mace, sword, or if you go mace, hammer, and you use body blows, every interrupt that you have on an enemy is going to apply weakness. And if you decide to go like a hybrid build, so you go sword, mace, then in the arms trait, in that instance, you could go for dual wielding, which is something you don't like normally see on warriors. And then if you wanted to go berserker later, you could slot arms in the second trait, and then take berserker on the bottom line if you want, which works really well. But the big deal with that is that it's going to give you that 20% damage bonus. But if you use things like aristocrat runes, every time you apply weakness, you'll get might. So if you're trying to generate might for healing, you can go and use aristocrat runes, and your third auto attack on your mace is going to proc that every time. All your stuns and interrupts will proc it every time, and things like that. But the basic concept of the build that I'm going to show you right now, this is the newest build that I'm running. The core version uses arms, and this is hybrid damage, and we go straight across to get 230% crit damage. We can get 100% crit chance or 70% depending on how you set it up. You get additional condition damage for a sword and our bow. You get 100% max stacks vulnerability, which is going to give you 25% increased physical damage and condi damage, and you get the bonus ferocity stacks or furious stacks for additional condition damage. If you go for more of a power build or you want a bursty type build, you can go for burst precision and save your crit chance runs and stuff you want. If you still want to use the sword or whatever with this, you can swap to dual wielding if you want to go mace, sword. It's all really good. But on the core version, we use Signet of Rage. You get like 20 seconds of condition or damage immunity for the most part, and then you get 3 additional seconds on your shield stance, and you can bring Fear Me if you want as well for a bar break that helps you break your bars a lot bit easier. It's better in groups and also can be pretty useful at just kind of dispersing enemies or kind of getting some more damage immunity off in certain situations. But in this situation, if I don't really want all this extra healing here, say I'm by myself, I can still swap to Phalanx formation if I want, but if I don't care about these extra vigor shouts, this bar doesn't matter. I can go Discipline Tree, I can go extra Condi damage, I can go extra condition removal, I can go extra quickness, extra burst potential, and then up here if I need more Condi removal, I can go for more condition damage and removal here. Especially with the bow. So it's very flexible in whatever kind of build situation that you want. But the main defense line that I would take for anything is just defense and warrior. This is the main bulk of healing that you need. Other than this, it's not the biggest deal because the weakness is going to make them have glancing blows on you in general. Um, Adrenal health heals you a lot, especially if you're mobile on the great sword. And then you have damage immunity for 5 seconds here on lesser endure pain. You have 10% reduced damage here as long as you can keep this going. We got 6 seconds of resolution. If you can get any more than that, you're going to keep another 10% damage reduction. The stances just going to give you extra vigor, which means extra dodge rolls if you're going for power, or extra dodge rolls if you're going for condition damage, either way. And then the barriers are just a nice little thing. Gives you additional 3 seconds of damage immunity. So it's not necessarily needed. If you want stability, you can still go for stalwart strength, and if you're going sword, shield, longbow, you can get infinite damage immunity off of this, just rotating back or infinite stability, rotating back and forth between those weapons as long as you hit your skills for the most part. Or you can spec into another trait line like strength and get brave stride, which would also give you infinite stability. However, on the warriors, these don't stack, so if you proc it one time, you need a time when you use your next ability to get the stability back again. So that's something to consider when you're making your builds. It's the big one when you're making your builds. If you're going for max damage, things like Berserker's Power, Peak Performance, they give you massive damage boosts. You can even do Great Fortitude if you want, but generally most people take this Great Sword ability. If you want additional healing, Might Makes Right is good. And also, this is whenever you gain Might, you get additional endurance. So, dodge roll, Reckless Impact, the dodge roll ability on this is already really strong. So, if you go for a power build with a Great Sword Rifle, for instance, you can go Signet of Stamina. Then you're going to get the Vigor off of this and the Signet of Stamina. You can go Energy. If you want to, like, have more potential dodge rolls and you might not be as strong fighting one enemy, you can go Signal of Energy, and then all of this will give you additional dodge rolls that you can use with your weapons. So you'll have your evasion on your Greatsword 3, you'll have your evasion or rollback on your rifle, then you'll have all of the dodge rolls, you'll have 50% endurance regeneration off of this consistently, and you'll have 50% endurance regeneration off this, and you'll get half your endurance bar off of your signal of endurance on your weapons. And then, if you're in a group of warriors and you don't necessarily want to take healing signet, which I use healing signet on those because you have a lot of evasions, so you're able to get a lot more health back just by evading than focusing on other things. But if you're in a group of warriors that are using a similar build setup, that's the one build that I would use To the Limit for, because it's going to allow you, say for your rifle, to start and open with your To the Limit and get a max adrenaline bar. But when you're in combat, any one of you that proc To the Limit is going to give you an additional half an endurance bar. So if you have 5 warriors together, you're going to have 5 half-bar endurance recharges here, which is going to be a lot, which will give you more might, more damage, more healing, whatever you want. So that's just something that's kind of interesting to take note of, and I think it's really solid. But some of these utility skills can be swapped out depending on your build, which is really, really interesting. Is why I like the warrior so much. You get so many weapon combinations, so many different things, but those are kind of the baseline things that I kind of look for in my builds when I start off, and then you kind of tweak things from there. Like my hammer axe is nothing but raw damage for the most part. I think it has access to adrenal health, and it takes merciless hammer, and then because the stuns are so heavy, that I don't really need the extra defense because I'm stunning everybody consecutively, and I don't care about dodge rolls as much, and I don't really care about anything else on that build. So it's raw damage. Now, this also means that if you want to go into a berserker thing, when you read the berserker kind of thing here, it tells you that it's primal and you get a high damage, high burst, reckless, but I find that Berserker's actually more of a defensive type. So something like the what is this? The Spellbreaker. People use that a lot. It gives you a decent amount of might. If you go Spellbreaker, you can actually keep up infinite protection, which is really nice. You can also do AoE slows, boon removal. All that stuff is really good. And then the Tether is decent for might generation and also gives you a lot of like crowd control on enemies in like PvP situations. But when I look at Berserker, you do have a lot of potential things that you could do here if you didn't want to spec for like condition damage or whatever in your ruins, and then you took armed straight off. Then you could come in here and take increased was it Smash Brawler? Critical hit chances increased while in Berserk mode by 15%. And then maybe you could go and spec in like Arms Trade on your second line, and you can get an additional 5% here, and you get the additional Fury, which is going to give you another 30% just baseline. So you're looking at 35%, 40, 50% crit right there. And then you could do like Unsuspecting Foe if you take your hammer, and then every time you CC somebody, you're going to get 100% crit right there, just using that over and over again. Or you can do the burst precision, 100% crit on your burst precision, and you save all of those stats that you would have used on your armor if you wanted to do this. There's also ruins that let you dodge roll and then crit immediately after completing a dodge roll. However, it will proc reckless roll or whatever that thing is called, reckless impact. So if you're using the ruins, they give you one free crit after a dodge roll, and you dodge roll into somebody, it will make your dodge roll crit. But you can still use that for like axe, eviscerate, or rifle burst skills or something, so you can max out your power and ferocity. And then if you wanted to like put your toughness on there or whatever other stat that you want, then you can spec in for higher crit chance on your warrior as well. So you can go for maximum DPS over time. You can go for very high, very bursty type damages with your rifle or even axe or great sword, whatever you want, and have really high defense stats if you want. But when it comes to Berserker, this bottom trait line is what we've just changed on this warrior build that I'm using. So if we go back here, I can still keep tactics and keep all of these heal skills activated if I want. But these, without my group healing me, ooh, they're useful and they're nice to have, but they're not mandatory. I don't need all these extra heal skills if I don't want. You can also see that on my build, this one's Celestial. You can use Crusader runs, which give you more of a power version of this. You can go for the I think Trailblazer or something that gives you the condition version of this with the same expertise and stuff, but you lose healing power with those options. But if you don't care about the healing, it's not a big deal. But the Runes of the Tempest, baseline to all stats. I'm a hybrid damage build right here, so I get baseline to all my stats. I can get 230% crit damage. I can get up to 70% crit chance. I can get good power, good condition damage. I can get 100% condition duration on my build. And then even if I swap to Berserker, right now I don't have a high. I think I have like 60 or 80% bleed duration because my Honor of Humanity. I don't have any runes that increase my bleed duration or sigils. So right here I have the chill because it chills for 2 seconds. So if I'm a group of 5 warriors, we can apply infinite chill to an AoE group of enemies, which is why I put that on there originally. But the core build, you can have 100% bleed and 100% burn duration. And then if you even swap to Berserker and you put the bleed sigil on your sword, and you can even, if you don't want the quickness, you could take the quickness off of the shield and put a 10% condition duration rune there if you want. But you can get 100% bleed and 100% burn on those two things as well. Now, why I think Berserker is potentially the second trait line you would want if you wanted to have a really beefy character without having to worry about your armor values or anything like that is simply because right here. So Savage Instinct, first off, when you use your abilities, you get access to burst skill. When you do that, it gives you quickness and super speed base minimum right off the bat. So if you want to go with the Berserker build and you want to have 100% crit chance or 100% bleed duration or whatever, you don't require this quickness, sigil on the shield. It's not necessary. You can just activate your Berserker mode, and it'll give you 4 seconds of quickness just off the bat, and that's all you really need. But when you come back in here, it'll say activating Berserk mode, breaks stuns, reduces incoming damage for a period of time when entering Berserk mode. So you get 2 seconds of 100% damage negation here, which is why this is how we're getting extra damage negation off. And then if you look back at our ruins, the way that this build works, it has shouts, and it's meant to work with multiple warriors, but it's perfectly fine on its own. And then the Tempest ruins give you 25% additional condition duration, and then you're getting bonuses to all your other stats, which give you a little bit more condition duration. But heal allies within the 360 radius after breaking a stun. It's 1100 health every time that you break a stun with no cooldown. And in this, you can break a stun with Headbutt. You can break a stun with Endure Pain. You can break a stun with Shake It Off. Your teammates can break stuns with their Shake It Offs. When you enter Berserk mode, it'll break a stun. Every time you do that, it's going to heal for 1100 flat, no matter what your healing is, basically. And if you wanted to increase this even more, you can put healing signals or whatever on your weapons if you want. You got 2 free slots here that you can put, like Sigil of Water or whatever on there if you wanted to. It's not a big deal. But what makes this a lot better is so you gain a burst of speed when entering Berserk mode. So you're gonna get your quickness and you get super speed. All right, on top of that, so you can run people down a lot easier and stuff when this happens. And when we swap to our sword, we're gonna do AOE chill, and we'll get the quickness and the super speed, so they're not gonna run away from you. And then once your sword procs and gets the cripple, I mean they're pretty much stuck in your range for a little bit. Also, when you activate your Berserk mode, you'll have a button up here that'll trigger, and you can deactivate it whenever you want. And this is key because when you go for Dead or Alive, gain Blood Reckoning when enter Berserk mode. Now you can see that if we go down to the heal skill, Blood Reckoning is actually the heal skill here, which gives us a minor little bit of healing. It's not that big, 1100, but you convert damage to healing of 33%. So no matter what your thing is, you're going to get that 33% damage. And with condition builds, this means every person that you apply your condition to, and since you can apply your additions to multiple enemies all at the same time, when this triggers, all those burns and bleeds and everything else are going to give you all of that life all at the same time, which is basically going to fill your bar all the way back up to full HP. If you're with the power build, you can roll and like deal damage, or you can just auto attack and deal damage the whole time. You're going to be taking and getting 33% of that damage back. So that's really strong. And it doesn't have the longest duration, but it's not the biggest deal. Then we go here. Berserk mode increases power and condition damage. So you get 178 and 178. But this is actually 300 and 300. So you'll get 300 power and 300 condition damage off of this. So the core version of the build, when you use arms, you're going to get like 600 plus extra condition damage off all these stats, and then you'll get the 25% damage bonus to both physical and condition damage with the vulnerability stacks. Now, if you're using a rifle or something, you don't necessarily need the vulnerability stacks. You can swap over to like Blade Master or Unsuspecting Foe. It doesn't really matter. But vulnerability, even with the rifle, is still good because it gives you more might generation. And now, with Berserker mode, I can go back to strength, or not. I can go back to strength if I want more physical damage. I can go to tactics if I want more healing. I can go to discipline if I want more burst generation. I'll be able to swap back and forth to my weapons more, use my burst skills, my primal skills a lot more, as well as get additional condition removal. Or even things like Vengeful Return, which can be really good, or Crack Shot. Um, and then arms if I want to, because when I swap over to Berserker stance, I'm going to lose all this condition damage on my build. And if I take the healing skills, then that's going to be a big loss for me for the most part. And when you look at tactics, we can get Vigorous Shouts, Shake It Off, Soldier's Comfort for the most part. Now these can trigger once every 10 seconds on my shouts. So it really comes down to how often can you proc these shouts, and is that heal worth it for you? So in a group of 5 warriors, one of these heal shouts with 5 warriors is 10,000 to 15,000 health every 10 seconds. And that's also the same for, it's about 10,000 for Fear Me or whatever else. But then also every stun break that you have, you can get an additional 1100. So even things like Endure Pain, if there's 5 of you next to each other, that's going to be 5,500 health just procking that. Or even activating Berserk Mode or anything. So you're AoE group healing each other for the most part. But if you take and you do, you drop that healing, the extra healing there, these stun breaks are still going to heal me when I use them. I can still get the condition removal if I use them, and I still get access to Dead or Alive. I'm just going to take more damage overall, but I'm also going to heal for more damage that I give out when I go and activate Dead or Alive. So you gang it when you enter Berserk mode. It lasts for 3 seconds, and you get 33% of your damage dealt refunded as healing, which can be a lot. And this will totally max out damage. But the big one is, because when you look at this, you might be tempted to go King of Flames. You get that 33% burning duration, which would go well with your 33% bleed duration on this if you want. But in my build case, my burn duration is already pretty high. This is nerfed down because I'm in the dungeon, but it's basically like 90 something percent duration. So, but if you wanted to keep your sigils off of here, because I have burning duration and condition duration on my longbow, if you take these off and you spec like this, it's going to replace that, which means you can put whatever you want on your bow to use. You want more chill, you want more condition damage, you want some more AoE healing sigils, you want some crit sigils, whatever you want, you can swap it out. It's not a big deal. But then the big one that's pulling this off, because you just look at these final 3, you deal increased strike damage is a 25% strike damage. So if you're going for more of a physical damage build, a 25% damage bonus is pretty big. Like my hammer axe build, for instance, can have like 200% damage increase just baseline, and this will give you like another 25%. The other one, if you're going to use like a rifle, for instance, on where'd it go? So if you're using a rifle, for instance, and you don't necessarily want to lose all your healing or just any physical weapon, you can go and do Warrior's Cunning, and it only takes effect up to the first, after 80% life, you lose this bonus. But if you're bursting someone down, especially like in a PvP type situation, there's 25 additional extra damage when they're above 80% health. So your first shot, if you're sniping somebody, you can do massive amount of damage with this. And then if you want to do this Bloody Roar, you can get 50% just with those two together. And then you got to look at strength, another 21%, another 15%. So you got 50%. You're already pushing, 80, 90% additional damage just right here with those stats together. So there's plenty of flexibility with all these builds. But defense-wise, and what we're doing with ours here, we're taking the last one, which is Eternal Champion. You gain stability, endurance when entering Berserk mode, so it gives us a little bit of extra stability, gives us a little bit extra endurance. So condition-wise, I'm not super interested in it all too much, but if I was on a power build, this would give me even more endurance regeneration to do more dodge rolls to generate more might and more healing and more damage all at the same time, so even more evasion. But when you trait that triggers when entering Berserk mode, also triggers when exiting Berserk mode. So you'll see that means that Dead or Alive, we can proc it twice for 6 seconds of healing. So we get 2 additional heal skills on top of everything else that we already have. And then we're going to get the 3 seconds to 4 seconds of quickness and a super speed again. And then we're going to be able to get Feel No Pain again. So every time that you enter Berserk mode or exit Berserk mode, you're going to get 2 seconds of damage immunity along with 3 seconds of 33% of your damage is returned to you as healing. And you can choose when to leave Berserk mode at any point to activate this additional healing again. So what happens here is it frees up whatever you want. If you want to get rid of Defiant Stance or whatever, it's up to you. But currently, we're going to get 5 seconds of damage immunity here. Then we have AoE Daze and Blind. So if you're in a group, you can AoE Daze and Blind a group of enemies to kind of pill each other off. You got Immobilization to jump and get away from enemies. Then you have Fear Me, which is going to be doing another 4 to 5 seconds, which could potentially make you take less damage. Then you have Endure Pain, which is going to give you 5 seconds of damage immunity. You're still susceptible to conditions, though. Conditions are the big one. But the big thing here is that compared to the core build, you get access to Headbutt, which is a stun break as well as stunning your enemy for 3 seconds. So it's going to help you break Defiance bars, pin people down in fights. It gives you a full Adrenaline bar, which is really nice. It can extend the duration of Berserk mode. But the big one is this is a 20-second cooldown, which is like the lowest cooldown ability I've seen on Elite skill, which means it's going to trigger the Lesser Endure Pain. So with Signet of Rage, this was taking 48 seconds with the other build. It'll take 60 seconds without the arms trait. But with Headbutt, we're getting this additional, 28-second cooldown reduction. But sadly, this is a rage skill, and I don't think it's considered physical. Or you could use it for generating excess damage. But it's really interesting. So all in total, we're getting 2 extra stun breaks that are on a really low cooldown. We get access to a different type of ability. The sword burst skill is going to block projectiles, so we get an additional projectile block. Then we're going to get 4 more seconds of damage immunity with Savage Instinct. And then we're going to get 6 more seconds of healing on this. But the one thing I can say out of all of this together, this is probably the tankiest that you could get in general with any build that you were going to make, no matter the weapon type, with Berserk and then defense trait line. But when it comes to this Berserk mode, it can be kind of difficult to balance your skills and how to use them. It can get a little confusing. So, for instance, like you start losing a bunch of health and you use Headbutt. Say you use like Defiant Stance, but then you use Headbutt. Well, Headbutt's going to trigger Feel No Pain, and then you're going to waste 2 seconds off your Defiant Stance because you're not going to be healing from any damage that you took. In any case, we're going to fight this next group of enemies in here, and then I'm going to stop this stream to kind of post this, and then we'll be done with this. But this is just going to be like a short fight with these guys, and y'all guys can kind of see what's going on. So we'll have a simple fight here. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Now you'll see that we'll trigger Endure Pain. And then if we activate this, we're going to trigger Feel No Pain, and we'll get all that additional damage. And then say that we activate this if we want to. We get that additional damage. That starts ending. We can do Eternal Champion, exit this. We'll get 2 more seconds and an additional heal skill again. Then say we use this second Endure Pain. Alright, we got some more damage immunity. Then say let's use Headbutt again. We'll get another Endure Pain. Alright. Then say that we use this Fear Me, or we swap over and we do the Shield Stance. Alright, and then our first skill's back up. We can use this again. Alright, which is going to give us more damage immunity. Now Headbutt's back open again. We get Headbutt, and then we could go back into Berserk mode, get 2 more seconds, 2 more seconds. And this is without even doing any dodge rolls. So all of this, the 100% damage negation, I still think that you need some armor. Most builds before I did anything, like you can still go 100% Berserker. And that's what I do with my Greatsword Rifle because they have evasion. But when it comes to like condition builds, I prefer a little bit more armor. So I usually aim for at least 16 to 1800 armor. Or toughness, basically. But a lot of the condition stats will actually give you more defense on there. But when it comes to the power version, the dodge rolls, it's the dodge rolling is so much damage immunity that you don't even need any armor at all for the most part. It's really good. But damage immunity trumps anything. Condition damage is going to be the big one here. But when you take Berserk mode, that frees up 4 seconds of damage immunity. So if you want to, you can drop Last Stand, take Cleansing Ire, or Stalwart Strength, and then you'll lose 3 total seconds off of your original skills, but you're still going to have the reduced recharge on your headbutt, and you're still going to have the additional 4 seconds off of your Berserk stance. So if you need more Condi Cleanse, you can spec it here. If you need even more, you can go for Discipline, and then you'll still have Shake It Off, and if you have more warriors with you, you'll get additional condition removals, or you can put Sigils on for additional weapon condition removal. But overall, conditions are going to be your main threat with the build because they still go through your Endure Pain and stuff. That's the big one. I actually wasted my Endure Pain right there. That's alright. But the whole point of this is it's a very solid warrior build that as long as you focus on your skill rotations for your damage immunity, you're not going to have any huge problems when it comes to in-game content. And although this doesn't give you the maximum DPS on a warrior, I think this is the ground standard basics for a warrior that I would use in the game coming in here now. Because it means that no matter what boss you go against or what, event that you're doing, you got a really good chance of surviving and being able to see what happens, see the boss's skills, learn their rotations. It's a good build to use for like a practice tool, or getting your feet on the ground coming into Guild Wars 2. So overall, I think it's a really, really solid build just to get your grasp in the game and not have to worry too much about having to die. And I would trust even brand new players in a group using this build together. I would trust them going into any content, even without a healer. I think it would be fine. And yeah, for the most part, give it a shot if you want to. Again, it's just, Celestial runes. You can use Crusader runes. You can use the Trailblazer or whatever that other version is runes. Any weapon types that you want for the most part. The basic skills are the same. Just remember that if you go power and you don't have increased condition duration or something, you can swap out Fear Me for Sign of Stamina, which will also give you more endurance regeneration as well as another condition removal. So that's the big one. But if you really want to, you can even do like a physical skill or a rage skill. I haven't even looked at these. Use a stun break. Extend the duration of Berserk mode. Leap location, deal damage, and inflict conditions to foes in the area. Since the duration of the Berserk mode gets extended. Summon a rock that blocks attacks, then shatter it and send out rock fragments that inflict bleeding to all foes in front of you. This could be good. 15-second cooldown. Blocks attacks for a half a second. That's not the best. Duration increase. Reflects missiles. Let me look at this real quick. Yeah, that's nothing, man. Lash out with critical attack and knocks down your foes. Gain fury and extend the duration of Berserk mode. Knockdown, 3-second knockdown, 20-second cooldown. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. So if you want to use a hammer or something like that, but feel free to give this a chance if you really want. There's a lot of possibilities with it. You can swap all kinds of things out. You can use all kinds of weapons. I think it's pretty decent and a really interesting, fun start, as well as gives you something nice to use if you're in a group of enemies, um, or like a group of allies, and you want to like do some role play or like some tactical, like realistic battles. You go and you make a shield wall or whatever, and then you fight them, and you activate your fear me's and make them run away and break formation. There's a bunch of things that you can do. But all right, if you found it useful, make sure to just tell me what's up in the comments. Feel free to flame me as well. But I'm expecting that some people are going to say something about maximum DPS at some point, but you can still go maximum DPS if you want with this build, and you're going to still have all the damage negation, which means all you need to worry about is your conditions at that point. So, y'all guys have